Welcome, Class of 2020.
Class of 2020, you may be seated on your couches. Welcome. Thank you to everyone watching this, especially Mr. Matsudo, Mr. Bergen, Mr. Kennedy, Madeira faculty, parents, grandparents, and most importantly, the Class of 2020. Today is the time when our grade comes together and recognizes one another. It is arguably the most important event of senior year, but 20 years ago, that was not the case. Only 20% of students and very few faculty showed up to this event. It was a sad way to celebrate a graduating class. Mrs. Hammond, a now retired English teacher from Madeira, saw that Baccalaureate needed to change and did so by offering students in the grade a chance to speak at Baccalaureate. It allowed a variety of voices and memories to be shared and heard. Over time, the evening evolved from a traditional service to a contemporary evening that each graduating class is given to mold into whatever they see fit. As class president, I've gotten to know everyone in the grade, and let me tell you, there are some wonderful individuals speaking tonight. So without further delay, it is my pleasure to introduce my classmate, Zack Altman, to begin this special evening.
Thank you, Samuel. Hey everybody. It's so awesome to see all of these faces in a place we've shared memories together for the last 4 years, and for some, much longer. Although I may not have some of the same academic achievements as a lot of my classmates, I am extremely proud to be in the same graduating class, and I'm even more honored to have the opportunity to speak in front of all of you. Anyways, let's get this show on the road. Grant is going to Duke with a 36 on his ACT, and Peyton's going to Notre Dame with a 35, both of which are incredible schools. But not going to lie, when I walked through those doors freshman year, I figured you'd both end up at Oxford or something, and not Miami. Moving on, we all know that Samuel's going to be president one day, and Ben is probably going to change the industry of education. And I know what you're thinking. What? That's ridiculous. How can one person change an entire industry? Let me tell you what. Ben is one of the most eloquent, funny, highly intelligent individuals I've ever had the pleasure to know. This kid is extremely smart, and I know he's going to change the world one day. In fact, I think we're all going to change the world one day. Molly is going to be crazy successful at soccer, even though she's already insanely talented, so I know that's hard to understand. Turner's going to become a hotshot Hollywood director. Katie's going to be this big-time movie actress, and David's probably not going to be majoring in accounting, as Miss J's 7th bell already knows. And I'm sorry, I apologize, David. David and I are actually very close friends. I just don't get the opportunity to call him out in front of so many people. So, David, I'm sorry, I guess you're going to have to wait till my wedding to get me back. You may not realize it, but all of these kids have something in common. And before you say, oh, well, they all went to Madeira, that's not it. What it is that all of these kids have an insane drive to be successful and an insane dedication. When I first came to Madeira freshman year, I was depressed. I didn't have any friends, and I was terrible at making new ones. Luckily for me, Scott Stalker was the first person to show me that I wasn't just a number. And by a number, I mean that quite literally, as the sport that Coach Stalker coached consisted of 9 guys all on a field wearing different numbers. I was terrible at baseball, but Coach saw that I was dedicated, and he chose not to cut me because he saw potential. In fact, I was so dedicated that I decided to pick up football because I wanted to get in better shape for the baseball season. That's where the story really begins. Something that I learned on the football field that translates to life perfectly is that everyone wants to eat, but you can't eat if your mouth is always closed. That's why we did so well last year. We may not have won a single playoff game, but we went 8-2 on the season, which is damn impressive. We practically lost our entire starting line, starting quarterback, and starting linebackers. We started and ended the season as a small team. Not one player weighed over 230 all season long. It didn't matter though, because my boys were howler monkeys, and we made sure everyone got fed. We all bought into the culture for the team. My senior classmates and I knew this was our last chance to play, which I know it sucks, but it made sure we were all in. However, something I didn't anticipate, which I've never seen on any other sports team I've been a part of, is that our all-in mentality echoed among all of the other grades in the high school. Every time we stepped onto the field, the other team got scared. Isn't that crazy? Every time we stepped on the field, the other team got scared. Our size was practically prepubescent in comparison to some of the dudes we were going up against. Let me slow down for a second to give you guys a little perspective, because I'm not sure how many people among us have actually had the opportunity to step on a football field. Teams are usually only intimidating when they have 3 qualities. 1, size and speed. 2, a good record. And 3, talented players. To other teams, we were a mystery box, a dark horse, an unknown roster that was generating wins, and we came across as scary. They had no idea why we were winning, and what you don't know is always scary at first, I suppose. What really scared them, though, is that we were good and we weren't afraid to show it. Our mouths were wide open all season long. When you show confidence and dedication, the work will practically do itself for you. I think something that we as Madeira students have trouble finding is internal dedication and motivation, because we live in a community where it's so easy to become entitled or lose sight of meeting. We truly live in a bubble because life is nothing like this small suburban city. That's why this upcoming year is so important. We're leaving the nest whether you like it or not. It's time to see whether we can fly. Life is not about whether you are ready to fly or whether you even want to fly. Similarly to how football isn't just about size or speed. It's about whether you are even going to try. Not all flights end with perfect landings, I'm sorry. What I have learned thus far is that life has nothing to do with the destination, but rather how you get there. The reason why we as a football team were great wasn't because of our record. It's because we all bought in and believed that we could be great. Sometimes you're gonna have to step on a few toes, and you'll put your needs and wants first, because I promise you that if you don't stand up for yourself, why the hell would anybody else want to? People like getting behind winning teams. No, people love getting behind winning teams. And from personal experience, they really aren't that hard to make. Sure, they take a lot of dedication and a lot of work, but these are all things that you control. It's not difficult to put in dedication and work, as we all know. It's the commitment to strive for greatness on a daily basis that's difficult, which is something not many people can do. We aren't just from Madeira. We are Madeira. We are Madeira strong. So don't let anyone shut your mouths, because I know for a fact that we are all capable of not just eating, but feasting. Lastly, I just want to thank a couple of people. My parents for their unending support, my friends for making these last couple years of high school such a fun time, my girlfriend for constantly shaping me into the best person I can be, and my football coach. Coach Stewart, I want to thank you for coming up to Liam and I in the weight room the spring of our sophomore year and trying to recruit us. Football has been my favorite time in life. The culture that you are building here is truly special. But in no part of my life was I ever built like an athlete. But after last season, I think I can safely say otherwise. Thank you, Coach, for not only shaping me into a stronger player physically, but mentally. It's now my pleasure to introduce Bella DiMauro and Macy Hyatt.
It's hard to know exactly where to start, but 4 years ago, I attended Baccalaureate as a freshman and was blown away by the messages I heard. Although I may not have understood all the inside jokes or references to classmates, what I did know was that I wanted to be in their place down the road. Looking back on that now, there's a lot of things that surprised me. For starters, I didn't realize how quickly, almost in the blink of an eye, I'd be standing in the same place. Although some memories from the beginning of high school or even earlier seem like a faded picture, others feel like they were just a few months ago. And on the topic of a few months ago, never in a million years would I be able to predict the circumstances of today or the end of this journey. I knew it would be hard for me to move on for this part of my life, but I wish I had known how uniquely difficult the end of this year was going to be. However, the bleak conclusion of our Madeira education cannot overshadow the multitude of successes and experiences our class has gathered over the years. Whether you've stuck with us since kindergarten or just as a senior, we each have our own story to tell about the time we've been at Madeira.
For those of you who have stuck with us for the long haul, you know that elementary school was a time where our class began to make our memories. Many of the friendships we made through Young Authors Night or recess are still existing today. I remember being thrilled to attend the brand new elementary school for Bright Eyes. I never once cried when my mom dropped me off for preschool. But how could I not love preschool? With all the arts and crafts, meeting amazing friends like Turner, Burton, and Ben Ramos, and all the books, how could I not love preschool? Then kindergarten came around, and I met my best friend, Isabella DiMauro, in Mrs. Bell's morning kindergarten class. We had music together with Mrs. Brewer and performed one of the best school musicals starring Ellie Andre as the bear. From the Rainforest Unit, being officially named a Blue Ribbon School, the cursive packets, biography projects, and our amazing class parties, elementary school is where we made incredible memories. Certain ones like Josh Evers playing Frosty in the school musical, multiple people throwing up in the musicals, and square dancing are a few that I think I will have forever.
Next comes the phase in our lives that many may wish to blot from their memories, so we'll try to be brief. Middle school brought things like ice cream and pop at lunch, walking downtown every Friday, overwhelming both the Starbucks and Bruegger's and occasionally being kicked out of CVS, dodgeball tournaments, the rope swing, and the amazing feeling of not having to walk in lines everywhere we went. The new school didn't come without struggles though, as some of us like Will Schweppe got stuck in lockers and needed help from maintenance to get out. Middle school brought many new experiences, from ping pong and microwave explosions at lunch, Olympic games, variety shows, a hot air balloon ride, and March Madness.
The Courage Retreat was one of my favorite parts of middle school. The team bonding exercises, including the tradition of running through the rope, brought us lots of fear and also lots of laughter. School sports, empty bowls, Khan Academy, hunting down a single diamond for one teacher during class time, after-school socials, and finding critters for our eco-tanks, we were very busy in middle school. Some friends, like Jacob Waltz, spent most of their time reading the school handbook cover to cover just to see if ordering pizza to the back door of the cafeteria of the middle school was against the rules. Turns out the school handbook never says it wasn't, but Mrs. Van Skyke thought otherwise. In middle school, we were lucky enough to welcome some new friends into our class. These friends are Nathan Huber, Sophia Cagino, Diego Arredondo, Rachel Malloy, and Lauren Feedley, just to name a few. In 8th grade, we started school at 7:34 with the high schoolers, hoping that none of the upperclassmen would even look at us. The girls and Joey knew the best bus to ride back to the middle school was Sharon's. In 8th grade, Grace Breinebach was a new student, and she fit in with Bella and I in science class. I think Ben Ramos, Robert Ball, and Brennan Huon are still jealous that Bella and I and Grace really did win every single science experiment in class. Pef just loved having us in class.
We left with a bang in 8th grade, cracking eggs in the cafeteria, to the 8th grade dance, our version of the DC trip, which was a Reds game, and graduation, where I managed to include not one, but 2 Dr. Seuss quotes in my 400-word speech. So definitely did not set the bar high for this one.
When we moved from Miami to Loannis in 2016, 2020 seemed like a decade away. Surprisingly, at the time, homecoming, homework, school sports, or relationships were not our biggest concern. In fact, clowns were. I was terrified of seeing these clowns when I walked home from school every day. Schools like Redden even canceled school because of them. But through all the stress, we still managed to beat the seniors in Spirit Week for homecoming. We may have gotten booed by literally the whole entire school, but it was still one of our greatest successes. Our sophomore year, we were all given our beloved Chromebooks, or Chromies, as Vivian and I nicknamed them. This was supposed to make completing assignments, communicating with teachers, and viewing grades so much easier. Unfortunately, we spent most of our time begging people for chargers in class and asking if we could use our phones for convenience. I think my whole junior year, I spent every hour thinking, I just can't wait to be a senior. Ironically, now that I'm a senior, I find myself thinking what I would do to not be a senior right now.
Suddenly, we were leading the clubs and teams we had been loyal members of and figuring out our plans for after May. This year brought many lasts: final sports seasons, senior nights, club events, last breaks on the beloved controversial couches, senior lunches, and for some, final days of trying to salvage well-worn Chromebooks. We ended on a very unique note, having worked so hard over 4 years that we were given a surprise extended spring and summer break combination to make up for not having a single snow day, and we got to test a new version of prom out at home. There's a lot of things that I've noticed this year while trying to take in everyday experiences I've taken for granted at Madeira. The many unique friendships that have lasted through the years or crossed within various groups, the numerous teachers who instruct but are also there as friends, always willing to help with school and non-school issues, and the bond of our class that has been strengthened with time, and more importantly, with the infamous senior group chat.
This year has ended in the most unimaginable way. While some of us have been ready for this next chapter in our lives for a long time, there's many of us who wish we could just have a few more days of normal school back. It is now my pleasure to introduce Katie and Livie Zack.
You know, Livie, I think we started something here. Dancing during elementary school choir concerts. The unstoppable force of a child's love to boogie. Comedy gold right there. You know what else is a comedy? Your life. Oh, but aren't you forgetting someone?
You're right. The dog's got a pretty funny life, too.
Oh, hardy har har. Well, anyway, I think the point is, even from the young age of elementary school days to now, we've never stopped the beat, and we won't certainly stop now. Even though we can't see you all in person, we won't hesitate to put on a show for you.
Ta-da!
Where'd you get the confetti?
It's your math homework.
We'll talk about this later. As you can see, families don't always get along. And we're no exception. But I'd say us being twins has been a pretty big exception.
We've done almost everything together since birth. We did sports together, played together, ate together. By God, we lived together.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny, really. They never did put us into the same classes until middle school. I believe they are depriving us of valuable family bonding time.
And valuable test cheating time.
Well, I guess there really was no need to put us into the same classes, because we do have psychic powers and we're able to just tell each other the answers.
All these years we've fooled them. It's a good thing I had study all at the same time you had history.
They do say to take the test with the best of your abilities. Well, our abilities. Hey, partner?
We've been on quite the journey. Next up, Jumanji.
That's right. The path we have tread has taken us far, and it has been nice to have tread this path with you by my side. Wouldn't you say, Livie?
Yeah, but as good as it is, it hasn't always been that way. With me going to the Oaks and you staying here, it was quite the change.
It was scary and sometimes even lonely.
But it proves something. That we're strong enough to get through this. No matter where we go in life, we're gonna be okay.
We're gonna go out into the world and do our own things.
Make our own friends.
Get our own jobs.
Eat our own pizza.
And through it all, we'll have each other. We'll have our family.
We'll have this town and the people we grow up with. And just like every other senior at Madeira, Ohio, no matter where we go in life, we'll always have each other.
And so, like any good actor or actress, we never leave an audience without a final bow to the lovely Madeira, Ohio and all its residents. From the Zack twins to you.
Congratulations, class of 2020. We love you. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you, Johnathan Thiele.
Thank you, Zack sisters. Ever since I was a kid, my father would always tell me, be a leader and not a follower. I would look right back at him and say, heck yeah, Dad, because I just want to make him proud, you know? But in the back of my head, I would always wonder, what does that really mean? What does being a leader mean, and why is that important? I've been mulling over those questions for some time now. I'll start with my earlier theories, and I'll take you back to elementary school. At first, my thought of being a leader was to be the first in line whenever it was time to head to gym class, recess, or lunch. I would literally be the line leader and lead my peers, which is pretty elevated thinking for a 7-year-old kid. But that idea was quickly shot down because we were always to line up alphabetically. And with my last name beginning with a T, I was always at the back of the line. How could my dad expect me to be a leader when our last name was so far back in the alphabet? But that's besides the point. I was back to square one, back to not knowing how to be a leader. Then came sports, most importantly football. I fell in love with the sport. What I didn't fall in love with, though, was my dad, who is also now my coach, telling me to once again be a leader and not a follower. So there I was, only a few years older than the first time my father gave me that advice, still with nothing to go off of. I decided to employ my earlier tactic and be the first in line for drills and such. This seemed to work more than it did in school, and I felt like I was being a leader for the first time. I thought this was a good step, but I still felt like something was missing. Moving on through the years, and now going through middle school, I decided to develop new traits for what I thought to be leadership. I pictured myself as a general or captain of a group of soldiers. It seemed like the best way to be a leader was to assert myself as the leader. I decided that that was my answer, so I tested it out. The problem was that I was afraid to make mistakes, afraid to be blamed for doing things wrong, and afraid to be vulnerable. I tried to paint the picture that I was some perfect leader that everyone should look up to just because I said so. In my mind, I thought I finally had my answer. Looking back now, I realized just how wrong I was. This idea of leadership stuck with me for a while, right until we became upperclassmen, and I got my chance to be a leader on the football team. I knew my old way of leading wouldn't work, and I would have to figure out a different way. I taught myself to not be afraid of making mistakes during practice. I wanted my teammates to know that we were all equal, and that one person was not the designated leader. I had more fun with my teammates doing things like dancing to the music in practice or in the weight room. And with this style of leading, I started to see a difference in the people around me. I carried this way of thinking over into our senior year, and I was voted in as one of the 3 captains of the football team. After what seemed to be a lifetime of searching, I felt like I finally had my answer to the question of how to be a leader. Being a leader means to have compassion, be vulnerable, and be accepting towards everyone. Don't be afraid to make mistakes or to be an overachiever, so that your teammates, friends, and everyone that might look up to you will do the same. But I still have an unanswered question. Is it really that important to be a leader rather than a follower? My answer, surprisingly, is no, because it's more valuable to be both at the same time. I answered this question on the bus ride home after our playoff game, and as you all know, and it pains me to say it, we lost that game. But I wasn't really thinking of what I could have done to change the course of the game, or that our season was over, or even that my football career could potentially be over. I was thinking about the relationships between me and my teammates that we had built over the years. I was thinking about the friends that I'll have for the rest of my life, and I was able to feel everybody's emotions, and I was able to empathize with them. I was thinking about how I had no regrets. I realized that anyone can be a leader and a follower at the same time. Because of these experiences, I will be able to be the best leader I can be later in life. And I challenge all of you, the whole class, to be leaders in whatever you end up doing, but also to value everybody who looks up to you. And don't be afraid to look up to them as well. Thank you, and go Mustangs. It is my pleasure to introduce Zeinabou Semane.
Thank you, Johnathan. Today is an exciting day. Now, class of 2020, I don't know if you know me, but I'm Zainabou Semane. We went to high school together, despite the fact that you may have rarely seen me. I want to give a big congratulations to everyone, including myself, for being here today. We all know how hard it is for me to be anywhere. It was only 3 years ago we walked into the labyrinth known as Madeira High School. Let's start with the blurry part. Freshman year, we were all squeaky clean, new backpacks, clothes, hairdos, or in my case, new hijabs. As young freshmen, we found ourselves lost between Mrs. Schmidt's room and Mr. Grayson's, despite how small our school really is. Though nervous as sophomores, we began to get the hang of things, and some of us believed we now had some sort of authority over the fresh meat lurking through the halls, just as we once did. And junior year, for many of us, brought experience, and if you were lucky enough to be in stock 7th bell, it also brought many arguments, laughs, and a newfound freedom of using the restroom without having to ask. Now, here we are, celebrating some of our last moments together. As Charles Dickens put it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Now we are through with the stressful days of AP and ACT testing. We got the chance to raise money for incredible organizations and entrepreneurship, U4U, and even got the chance to recycle plastic into a bench for the Environmental Club. We have survived scandals, we have survived the flood of people rushing out to beat the buses, and last but not least, we have realized we are the most attractive class ever. One might even say we have aged well. Now, as seniors, we are through, afflicted and overwhelmed with senioritis and the many hardships we have faced. I mean, come on, we're the class of 2020, a year where World War III almost started, Australia was on fire, Kobe Bryant died, sports were canceled, the whole world was in lockdown, Carol Baskin killed her husband, Gronk is out of retirement, and Kim Jong-un, well, he was rumored to be dead. We are the class whose end-of-year celebrations seem to have taken a century to be known or official. But when the world was facing enormous problems, we made sure to keep our heads held high and our hopes even higher. We checked in with one another and made sure we were keeping the best of spirits towards our senior celebrations. We have made the best of our time together and the best of memories in 2020. Now we're all here, remembering what was and what is, and realizing now's our time to take on the world and find and pursue our passions, and to quote-unquote leave a legacy. William Shakespeare, and also Channing Tatum, once said, "Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them." In life, we can't always count on being great, but we can count on the incredible people who will push us to greatness and remind us that the opportunity to achieve greatness is within our grasp. Keep in mind that many of our social and political leaders, as well as our heroes, started out as an average person, as just one of you and me. And although we may make mistakes and failures, we find that the average person achieves greatness, whether recognized by the world or just a few. In my time at Madeira, I've learned that greatness comes from friends reaching out. If there's anything I've taken from Madeira, it's that to leave a legacy or to achieve greatness is not to be recognized by the world or to be wealthy, but to leave those with whom you cross paths with a little more happiness and hope. Our time at Madeira won't be remembered by our grades, popularity, likes, or favorites, but by the people we were and the relationships we built. Those are our legacies. Thank you.
Every year, the graduating class nominates teachers to speak at Baccalaureate. This special honor has become an important part of the night. Our day-to-day contact with the staff of Madeira High School has certainly been much different this year due to our move to remote learning. Because of this, the entire staff felt moved to honor our graduates and be represented in our baccalaureate ceremony this year. The following video represents just a fraction of the many ways all these special people have been part of our lives during the past 4 years. While our teacher may not be sitting in this auditorium tonight, next to our parents and friends, they are still watching and celebrating us from afar.
picture frames every name they show. These halls I've walked 1,000 times, heartbreaks and valentines, friends of mine, oh no. I look at everything I was and everything I have loved, and I can see how much I've grown. I'm not afraid of moving on and letting go. It's just so hard to say goodbye to what I know. I know. This time no one's gonna say goodbye. I keep you in this heart of mine. And this time I know it's never over. No matter who or what I am, I'll carry where we all began. And this time that we had, I will hold forever. I'm looking out from the crossroads. I don't know how far away I will roam. I take a breath, I close my eyes, and your voice will carry me home. I keep you in this heart of mine, and this time I know it's never over. No matter who or what I am, I'll carry where we all began. And this time that we had, I will hold. And this time that we had, I will hold. And this time that we had, I will hold forever.
Coming into high school, my mom told me I could go to 2 people if I ever needed anything, Miss Jordan and Miss Tucker. When I was a sophomore, my mom always told me that Miss Tucker was like my second mom in high school, even though I couldn't see it yet. I also didn't really become close and talk to Miss Jordan until my junior year, but I still love her just as much. So I started to go to Miss Tucker by the end of my freshman year and grew to be very comfortable asking for things. So comfortable that by my senior year, she was practically providing me breakfast twice a week unknowingly. You see, Miss Tucker keeps a ton of snacks in her room, and she needs someone to eat them now that her daughter Emma has left for college. She always has said take whatever you need and that she doesn't mind me eating her food, even though I feel like deep down she does. The reason she probably never says anything when the bell rings and she walks in to see me with a half-eaten Belvita bar sitting on the desk is probably because Susie Tucker is one of the nicest and most patient people that I've ever met. I know a lot of students would agree with me as well. And no one ever feels silly or dumb asking a question in her class because she makes you feel as anything you ask matters, even if it doesn't. She seems to be the best school mom I've ever had. Within this past year, I've also had the incredible opportunity to go to Italy with Miss Tucker on our Latin trip. When we were there, we went to several different cities and stayed in multiple hotels. So the night we stayed in Siena, I roomed with Lucia, and we blew a fuse. No big deal, really. We thought, though, that the worst of the worst was going to happen. We thought we could get fined or something for just blowing a fuse. We didn't know what to do, so across the hall, we asked a few people. They weren't sure of what to do either and weren't much help, as one of my friends ended up videotaping us holding our phone cords slap happy at 1:30 in the morning. We tried to figure it out for at least 30 minutes. And then I was the one who ended up deciding to call Ms. Tucker. I felt so bad it wasn't even funny. She was so nice on the phone though, even though I knew she was wondering why this simple fix was so complicated for us. All we had to do was flip a switch. So we flipped the switch, and all the power came back on and everything was fine. Like I said before, Ms. Tucker the next day didn't even complain that we woke her up, but chose to laugh at us instead. Now, this was only one minor incident, but this woman dealt with us all trip, being late to the bus when they said, get there 15 minutes ahead of time, going to bed at 3 a.m. for several nights in a row because we weren't used to the time change, and scrambling to eat breakfast as we never got there at the right time. She would give us reminders to set our alarms and be down at the bus 10 minutes ahead of time. And we tried to do better, but we were still late to all of these things. In the end, though, she never, not once, yelled at us for any of it because of just how patient she is and was with us during this trip. By the time my senior year rolled around, I had grown very close with Miss Tucker, but I didn't realize the impact I had had in her classroom and on our vacations together. Every year, Coach Brady has a dinner for us, soccer girls, and he asks the parents to reach out to former coaches, friends, and anyone who may want to write you a letter as your last year of playing. So that night, sitting in the little Italian bakery in Madeira, we received a bag full of letters written for all of us. I opened some at the table, even though I told myself I'd wait. I ended up being fine, but then I started to shed some tears with Molly McGuire because I will never forget when I opened Miss Tucker's letter. Towards the end of it, she had written, I love that you take time to care about your friends no matter what. I am excited for your future. There are so many things waiting for you. I can't wait to see where the world leaves you. Love, Suze. When she signed it Suze, that is when I knew, after 4 years of calling her that it was actually okay to do so. I realized that we had built a stronger relationship than I thought, and that my mom was right. Miss Tucker is there for me. She is patient, intelligent, motherly, and the best school mom that I never intended on having, but I got anyway. Thank you, Suze. It is now my pleasure to introduce Emma Beck.
Thank you, Kennedy. Most of you might not know me very well. My name is Emma Beck, and I was a new student at Madeira this year. 1 year ago, I was in a very dark place. I was struggling with a lot of difficult things and didn't have much hope for my senior year. I considered quitting a sport I loved and finishing out high school online. I was depressed and felt incredibly stuck. My parents had been planning on making a change for a while, and we ended up moving to Madeira last summer. In the span of a few months, I went from feeling unhappy and alone to feeling loved and valued. I was welcomed into a new cross-country team and spent the summer getting to know Madeira a little better. A lot of people joke about finally getting to leave the Madeira bubble, but I was so excited to just be a part of it. From the first day of school, it was all the little things that stuck out to me the most. The administrators, counselors, and teachers knew everyone's names and wouldn't hesitate to say hi in the hallways. The close-knit learning environments in every classroom, and really just how close everyone was. The culture at Madeira is truly special, and I feel so lucky to have been able to experience it. I had the opportunity to be a cross-country team captain, and the girls on the team now are some of my very best friends. I got to be part of What's Up Madeira and feel inspired by Turner's passion for film, and I ate lunch in Mrs. Jordan's room every day with some of the funniest people I know. I've come to the conclusion this year that your environment is everything. The people that you surround yourself with are crucial to your growth and have the biggest power to build you up. It is so important to find those people in your life who will support you and believe in your dreams. I have found those people at Madeira, and they have impacted me in ways that I cannot begin to explain. So as easy as it is to wish for more time at Madeira, I am so grateful for my 1 year. It is now my pleasure to introduce Ben Ramos.
Thank you, Emma. I can tell you one thing with absolute certainty about Baccalaureate. Anyone who had Mr. Kitchen as a teacher is terrified about what he is going to think about his or her speech. Will your introduction really hook me, he might say, or are you going to settle for mediocrity? Now, I don't say this to glorify the fact that most people have a healthy fear of our beloved yet fastidious ninth grade English teacher, but instead to prove a point. Mr. Kitchen's wisdom will always resonate with his students. I hear those vocabulary words to this day, and then I will say out loud, that's a Kitchen word. In fact, that weird word fastidious that I just used is a kitchen word meaning difficult to please. And there are other teachers as well, whose words and actions will forever be on my mind. From Magistra, I learned study habits to last a lifetime, and I witnessed her sheer and unrelenting commitment to me and my peers as students and leaders in the Latin Club. From Mr. Becker, I received the realization that only when my goal was learning would my grades handle themselves. From Mr. Korn, Mr. Phelps, and Gurr, I was astounded by their unrelenting joy with mathematics. And of course, TI-inspired calculators. Mr. Belarski's attendance questions made me excited for his class to begin every day. Mrs. Edwards gave me the confidence that I needed after I performed poorly on a test. I finally grasped what all those buzzwords like critical thinking and analyzation meant from Mrs. Schmidt and Mrs. Seelmeyer. Let's not forget Mrs. Tucker, who lets me and my friends use and break her meter sticks to play hockey in her classroom 2 times a week as a sign that we can have fun too. It was always a great day in Mrs. Barton's class when we had lab. Or how about Mrs. Jordan getting me so fired up about investing that my dad, the banker, has to tell me to slow down. Mrs. Candela clearly proved that our teachers care so much for our mental health with her work with the Hope Squad. Mr. Stocker and Mr. Grayson taught me every essential detail that I needed to know in order to be an informed citizen. Mr. Brady, gosh, he could always make me laugh. And for all the other teachers I didn't have the pleasure of having, I've heard plenty of stories of your greatness. At Madeira, our teachers and mentors don't stop there, however. Josh Dooley displayed every day an incredible and indescribable amount of devotion to the Madeira runners and to making those runners wonderful people. Furthermore, the care that Coach Tony put forth in developing me as a leader and a soccer player was amazing. And the enthusiasm and positivity that Gurr infused into the soccer team was completely essential. Finally, let's not forget the amazing middle school and elementary school teachers that I have had, from Mrs. Bell to Mr. Mikely. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you've done and continue to do every day in the Madeira School District. Beyond all those amazing deeds, I would like to personally thank every mentor and teacher I have had for inspiring me to one day be like you. That's right, I want to be a high school teacher, and there are others in the class of 2020 who are pursuing a degree in education. It's hardly a surprise that I'm going to be a teacher, considering my sister, my mom, and both of my paternal grandparents are educators. However, I can confidently say it is also due to the many selfless sacrifices that the teachers at Madeira made for us, and because of the joy and enthusiasm that they radiate. It would be an honor to one day impact a student of mine in a manner even close to the amount that the Madeira teachers have influenced me. That's why I have this final word for my classmates. No matter if you want to be a teacher, an entrepreneur, or even a doctor, find some way to help others like these teachers have for their entire lives. As the motivational speaker Zig Ziglar says, you can get anything you want if you help enough other people get what they want. I will say it again. You can get anything you want if you help enough other people get what they want. I say this quote as much to you as to myself. Even while it can appear that I'm taking the honorable route of becoming a teacher, I can still get sidetracked from my best intentions. I simply want to remind you and myself of something so simple, yet also true. It is in giving that we receive. And if you want proof that aiding others is the key to success in any field and to a fulfilled life, I invite you to inquire of Mr. Kitchen, or any other of the Madeira teachers, who are incredibly erudite, which is in fact a kitchen word meaning wise. Thank you.
For the man who certainly needs no introduction, but is special enough that I'm going to give him one anyways. He is the teacher who you know is Mr. Unger, or more likely by his iconic nickname Gur, the teacher who will stop anywhere in the hallway just to give you a fist bump or an emphatic "how's it going" followed by a fist pump in the air. A Cobra Kai superfan and owner of Duolingo's longest streak. But most importantly, a beloved teacher and coach. Mr. Unger has been a dedicated teacher for 23 years at Madeira. He was the head boys soccer coach for 16 years and led his team to win the state championship in 2002 and 2003. He has also assisted with boys basketball since 1995 and with both the boys and girls soccer teams since 2015. At the top of this long resume is a Harvard seal of approval, so anyone would know that Mr. Unger is special. But I can say without a doubt that every student in the class of 2020 has gotten the chance to learn just how amazing he is firsthand. Not only is he incredibly passionate about teaching and never fails to offer help, which I took full advantage of with countless con assignments this year, he genuinely cares about every single student, both in and outside of the classroom. He never failed to ask how a lacrosse game went for Elizabeth and me, or send me a funny email when there was a Michelle sighting at the local Kroger. He cared more about us as people than how we did on a test or exit or a question. His ability to connect with everyone is what I'll remember years from now, when I've long forgotten what a seek and craft looks like, which I'm sorry to say, Gur, I probably couldn't even draw now. It's with great pleasure that I now introduce Mr. Unger.
Thank you, Ava. I'm so proud of you. I'm going to really miss you next year. Good luck in the honors program at The Ohio State University. Superintendent Matsudo, Assistant Superintendent Bergen, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kimling, President Bernicke, graduates in waiting for the class of 2020. Thank you so much for giving me the honor of speaking to you. Let's concede that these are not the ideal circumstances. I can't see you. I can't hear you. I miss your wide smiles. I miss your bright eyes. I even miss Jack respectfully raising his hand to ask if he might visit the restroom right as I'm about to deliver my most important points. 3 weeks ago, I was supposed to attend my own 25th class reunion at Harvard Law School. Milestones like this let you know you're getting older and time is passing quickly. You can't help but reflect and assess where you stand among your peers. The boy I played squash and poker with is the junior senator from Texas, and we'll see him running for president again in 2024. The guy who put me in his makeshift home movie wrote the screenplay for Precious and won an Academy Award. My best friends from law school all have large incomes in exciting cities like New York, Washington, D.C., and Atlanta. And another one of my friends has started multiple internet companies. Have I ever told you about Zulily or Chewy.com? Landing him in Forbes magazine of the richest people in the world. To say the least, my classmates have done well. Meanwhile, I look in the mirror every morning and find myself exactly where I was 23 years ago, right here, teaching at Madeira High School. Now, it's not like nothing has changed. Physically, I'm a little slower and weaker than I was when I arrived in the 90s. The knees creak a little louder when I get up from hours of Zoom meetings. The hair is a little thinner, a little grayer, maybe whiter. There's been an ever so slight deterioration of my natural good looks. Mentally, I tire a little more easily. I can't do math in my head as well. I occasionally forget things, sometimes forgetting what I've forgotten. And I'm not even that old. I look to my experienced friends in administration and, just kidding, Mr. Kimling, but I have to believe what we lose in physical strength and mental sharpness, we make up for in wisdom. The last time I spoke at Baccalaureate in 2015, I spoke about Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay called Compensation. In this essay, Emerson spoke of the fact that for every loss you suffer, there's an equal and opposite gain. You just have to find it. I've been fascinated by this idea over the years, and I've found it to be true. So often, disappointment is followed by fulfillment, defeat is followed by glory, Pain is followed by a healing, leaving you stronger than you ever were before. I've always marveled at Helen Keller. This deaf, mute, and blind woman was one of the most brilliant philosophers our world has ever seen. Would she have had such insight had she been normal and just like you and me? Helen Keller is the model of compensation, someone who found the equal and opposite of benefit associated with loss. And compensation is all around us. Your class has demonstrated numerous examples. Our terrific musicians and singers, our wonderful actors and artists, our award-winning students in so many competitions, including State Latin Convention, Budget Challenge, Academic Team, Jets Engineering. But the coach in me gravitates to the athletic field. I could talk about any of our amazing seniors from the Amazon soccer team, for which I am privileged to be an assistant coach. I could talk about Paige's fierce defending and pride. I could talk about Kennedy's ball winning and leadership. I could talk about Claire's improvement and unpredictable sense of humor. I could talk about Ellie's responsibility and Corinne's willingness to serve in any role asked of her. I could talk about Lauren, who stars in other sports but was this team's loudest supporter. I could talk about Sophia, who played little but gave so much. And of course, I could talk about my favorite player, Liz, who cared more about the team and everyone else than herself, and always answered back when I complained about the officiating in Spanish. But I want to talk to you about our goalie, Molly McGuire. I first met Molly as a shy 8th grader who flew around the goal but never said a word. Being the best player on a Brady-coached team is not for the faint of heart. Let's just say Coach Brady can be very demanding. The only person who put more demands on Molly than Brady was Molly herself. Molly took responsibility for every goal scored against us and every loss we suffered. In her first 3 seasons, Molly's highlights greatly outweighed any mistakes, but her junior year ended with a devastating concussion that left her unable to play, and still worse, unable even to support her teammates. At that time, Molly's world had ended. Where was the compensation in this brutal, season-ending injury? But Molly came back her senior year more determined and stronger than ever. Her shot stopping was even better. Her punts were even longer. And for the first time, her voice made her an absolute force and a confident leader on the field. This girl who used to be as quiet as a church mouse is now a young woman with the lion's roar. When the Amazons found themselves in another district final this year, but unable to score for 110 minutes, it was Molly McGuire who put her sisters on her back, turning back shot after shot, and how fitting it was that her save in a PK shootout won the district championship. We'll be seeing and hearing a lot from Molly McGuire in the future, on and off the field, as she moves on to play for Cleveland State University. I returned to assist boys soccer as you guys entered high school. Max, thank you for 4 great years. Byrne, thank you for your efforts. Cole, thank you for your effect. Thank you, Ben and Ben. Thank you, Samuel S., for yeoman's work in 2 sports. Thank you, David. Thank you, Brennan. Thank you, Nathan and Jack. Thank you, boys. Thank you all for humoring an old coach by listening to endless stories of games and players from many years ago. I could talk for hours about the things I've learned from every one of you. The player I want to talk to you about is Grant Bright. How did Grant Bright find his way into a speech on compensation? Grant Bright makes it look all so easy. Valedictorian, perfect ACT score, stars in both athletics and on What's Up Madeira, heading to Duke University. Let me tell you something. It's not so easy being Grant Bright. For all his accomplishments, Grant does as little as possible to draw attention to himself. You'd have to be a very astute observer of the game to understand how vital Grant was to the championship performances of soccer teams his sophomore and junior seasons. But this young man always seems to find a way to succeed. How does this happen? Why do things continue to fall into place for GB? Is it luck? Is he a genetic freak of nature? Let me help answer these questions with an anecdote. My own son, Will, has spent countless hours in the high school gym working on his own soccer skills. These past few years, it seemed like every time Will and I would go to the high school, GB and his family, yes, with his brother, mom, and dad, would be up on the turf working on his finishing. Shot after shot was taken. Free kick after free kick was retrieved. We all got to see Grant perform at an all-district level every time he wore the blue and gold. But how many hours were spent with no one watching? Grant's final game ended in disappointment with a loss to Seven Hills. Late in that game, GB had a free kick from just outside the box. He hammered it in for a goal. Some would say it was meaningless. Instead of losing by 3, we lost by 2. To me, that goal validated everything I know about Grant Bright. It told me this is a young man who will always be ready when the opportunity arises. The world only notices his many successes, but it's what Grant does when we don't see him and don't hear him that allows him to be the achiever that he is. He is someone every future Mustang should hope to emulate. One of those future Mustangs is 7th grader Will Unger. I'm not sure there's a bigger Madeira fan than Will. Will's favorite team this year wasn't really a team. It was a group of 4 runners. Ben Ramos, Ben Cunningham, Dylan Whitson, and Diego Arredondo put in as much hard work as any of the many athletes I have seen compete at our school through the years. Running before school and running after, lifting and yoga, backbreaking interval training, and grinding mileage. This gang of 4 won championship after championship in the fall, winter, and spring. They broke multiple school records. Dylan even beat the fastest man the Cincinnati Reds had to offer in one of my favorite highlights of this year. Last year, these boys became our school's first track relay team to ever make the state podium. They had only one thing left to accomplish, a state championship. And this year, they were determined to do it. On April 20th, Governor DeWine made the decision to close all school facilities for the remainder of the school year. Shortly thereafter, the OHSAA decided that the spring sports season was postponed indefinitely. 5 years ago, I talked about our swimming relay that fell 0.05 of a second short of winning a state title. This year's 4x800 meters team never even got a chance to run. What possible compensation can come from such heartbreak? The situation brought me back to one of my favorite soccer players on one of my favorite soccer teams. In 2006, I had a senior, Nate Irvin, class of 2007, a backup who, despite battling a knee injury his entire career, did everything a coach could ask for. His example raised the level of more talented teammates, and he became a legitimately strong substitute forward for our team. With 12 seconds remaining in the state semifinals, our boys had valiantly fought to a 1-1 score against the number 1 ranked team in the state, and it looked like we were heading to overtime when a ball flew out of bounds by our bench. Nate easily could have let the ball roll harmlessly to the fence. Instead, he made the sporting gesture of retrieving the ball for Worthington Christian. Our opponents took advantage of the situation by scoring a dramatic last-second game-winning goal, and 3 days later followed up by winning the state championship. To lose that way was shocking. Just like that, I was no longer coaching the most overachieving group of seniors I'd ever had the privilege of coaching. Needless to say, Nate was devastated. A few months later, I received a letter from the parent of a Worthington Christian player. In it, he wrote, "When watching the videotape of our winning goal against you, we were stunned to see that one of your players got the ball for us on the sideline. It was a class act by a class team. Through the years, we've learned that Madeira players show great respect for their opponents and great respect for the game." The defeat was gut-wrenching, but what an unbelievable compliment this was to my player. As I told the boys after the game, you should never have to apologize for acting with decency and honor. That game and that moment were among my proudest as a coach. I left law to become a teacher and a coach. I stepped down as a head coach to have more time at home. The greatest compensation I've had as a retired head coach has been the opportunity to spend more time with my son. But boy, does he wear me out with his questions. I'm not sure Will has a more favorite topic to ask about than the members of our 4x8 team. And what can I tell him about Diego, Dylan, Ben, and Ben? All are outstanding students. All are super citizens. All are great friends to many. And like so many of you, they are shining examples of this incredible class from this wonderful school. Are our runners diminished in any way by a failure to win the state championship? The longer I've coached, the more I've understood Kipling's famous quote, "If you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters all the same." Through the years, I've learned that in the end, competition and participation is not about the glory, the wins, trophies, banners, or titles. Rather, it's about the created memories, the character developed, the stories shared, and the relationships forged during a pursuit of excellence. As I told Nate Irvin back in 2006, if my son could grow up to be like Ben Ramos, Ben Cunningham, Dylan Whitson, and Diego Arredondo, I'd be a very proud father. Over the past many years, I've read my fair share of books. I'll read just about anything, but my favorite books are biographies and autobiographies of great men and women. I read these books in the hopes that I can learn from these people. Some common lessons have come through. Nearly every successful person I've read about has had a period in their lives where they were down and out, periods of terrible frustration, periods where they made horrendous mistakes, periods of desperation where achievement seemed beyond reach. Thomas Edison had over 10,000 failed experiments before he finally invented the light bulb. One of my favorite coaches, Joe Torre, set a Major League Baseball record for having the longest career as a player and manager without ever reaching the World Series. That was before he managed the New York Yankees to 4 World Series titles in 5 years. Ann Sullivan was Helen Keller's phenomenal teacher. After being taken for granted and stymied by Helen's parents, Miss Sullivan, who was legally blind herself, became so depressed with her situation that she nearly left the Keller household in disgust before seeing even a fraction of what was to become of Helen's miraculous progress. Abraham Lincoln lived through many days which tried men's souls before bringing a conclusion to the Civil War, which ended slavery and saved the United States of America. In our current dark times, I think of a teenage girl in 1940s Holland named Anne Frank. When the Nazis invaded, Jews like Anne were faced with impossible decisions. Anne, her family, and some friends chose to hide in a little-known attic at her father's business. While we can't dine in at restaurants, the Franks barely had enough food to survive. Where we're not allowed to run on the school track, the Franks couldn't make a sound during business hours for fear of being discovered. We're in a fight together against a cold, faceless virus. The Franks faced the fear of a barbaric and vicious evil and cruelty, where they couldn't even trust their neighbors. There was no Netflix in the secret annex, and there were no headphones. The times were unimaginably and horrifyingly desperate. Where so many others would have faded, Anne thrived in becoming a world-class writer. Her words of faith and goodness and hope continue to have meaning these many decades later. No one saw or heard Anne Frank, but we're still talking about you today, Anne. A common theme among every great person who ever lived is that they're able to hang on just a little longer where other people may very well have given up. They were able to find the positive aspects of negative situations. They were able to demonstrate an understanding of Emerson's compensation. Understanding compensation and reaping its benefits largely comes down to your attitude. Will you be the type who wallows in self-pity? Will you be the one who always sees the sky falling? Or will you be the one who sees the silver lining in every dark cloud? And will you be the one who anticipates the sun coming up tomorrow? As you move into your futures, I'm not going to wish you a fairy tale life where you live happily ever after. I'm not going to wish you a road without bumps and dead ends and obstacles. I'm not going to wish you a world without hardship. Instead, I'm going to wish you the strength to persevere when everything around you is falling apart. I'm going to wish you the ability to rise from the ashes and bounce back stronger than ever when it seems like nothing is going your way. I'm going to wish you the faith, wisdom, and guidance to overcome all which comes to you, to find the silver lining in every cloud, to find the compensation in every loss. Vince Lombardi, the famous football coach, put it well when he said, "The glory is not in never falling down. The glory is fighting to get up every time you do get knocked down." Another writer said this thought in a different way, which I have always found inspiring. Only when the sky is darkest can I see the stars. Yes, my friends from Harvard are richer than me. They have more fame. They have more power. But I can speak for all of your teachers from K to 12 in saying we know the compensation, because I have a little secret for you. As you move on in your lives, we may not see you, and we probably won't hear you. But just because we aren't seeing you and hearing you, don't think we're not right there with you. When Peyton is CEO of her Fortune 500 company, we'll be taking notes in the boardroom. When Lee, JT, and Lucas are coaching their youth football teams, we'll be blowing the whistle. When Bella is representing us in Congress, we'll be rounding up the votes. And when Lucy marches for justice, we'll be marching right beside her. When Turner takes Hollywood, we'll be walking that red carpet with him. And when Livie accepts her Nobel Prize, we'll be somewhere on that plane to Oslo. And when all of you are tucking your children in at night and teaching them civility and kindness and character and standing up for what is right, you may not see us, and you may not hear us. But somewhere, maybe in a shadowy corner of the room, we'll be there behind you, saluting your parents and giving you a soundless standing ovation, because we are so proud of what you have become and done and how you've represented our school and our community. And there is no amount of money, fame, and power that can replace the value of knowing we have had even the tiniest part in helping you do the great things you will be doing in your futures. May you go forward in love, health, happiness, and peace. From Morgan and Trevor to Macy and Grace, from Alyssa and Rachel to Isabel and Claire, from Katie Zack to Zach A, from Josephine to Joey, I wish Godspeed to the Madeira High School class of 2020.
Good evening, class of 2020. Thank you for making it out tonight. We would also like to thank our teachers and staff members for making this night happen. Let's get started. My name's Claire.
And I'm Paige.
While Claire and I aren't the best at math, Nick and Zunon are the best in our class. They were taking high school math classes in middle school.
I didn't even know that was possible.
We know they will go on to do great things.
Just like we know Nicholas Dennis Ashball will excel in his math classes in college because we know he's had the extra practice.
Everyone was really grateful for Samuel and Ava being in their classes because they asked the questions everyone else was thinking too. We know they will have a great relationship with their professors.
Hannah and Nick were always very quiet in class, but when they did talk, it was always something very friendly. I'm going to miss them both so much.
On the other hand, Neil and Alice don't talk much, but when they do, it's always what everyone else was thinking.
Every word I have heard out of Jamie's mouth is always a positive one. She enjoys giving compliments and making people feel better.
Yeah, she's a queen. Speaking of positive qualities, Claudia and Grace are definitely the most organized. They always know the dates of the tests, have their planners filled out, and always have their note cards.
While we're on this note, let's acknowledge Gabby and Emily for their relentless work ethic. I know firsthand that Gabby has never gotten less than 95 on a psych test.
Speaking of school, Ben's passion to teach students makes him likely to secure a spot at Madeira as a future teacher. Passionate teachers are just part of the Madeira way, which is why so many families never end up leaving Madeira.
Just like Elise and Macy, who will probably raise their own kids here and definitely run the Future Madeira Moms account.
On the other hand, we will probably never see Zeinabou again. I guarantee she won't even come back for a class reunion. While she will be attending Michigan State University to study English, we know she will do great things.
I know for a fact that Lucia will be super successful out in California. I can see her being the head of her own company because of her positive attitude, spunk, and passion. Not to mention, she's a 10.
Just like Ellie and Sophia, who might even be cuter than Brady's new puppy. Kobe is still adorable, Brady.
Even without a puppy, Haley and Emma will have no problem finding eligible bachelors. Do you think any boys in our grade would ever go on The Bachelor?
I mean, I can think of a couple. Half the grade has been on a date with either David or Grant.
But they have to watch out for Jack Schweppe and Matt Ventura. That goes for all you boys out there. Paige, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. Matt definitely knows how to flirt. How about Dylan and Diego? They do have a great bromance.
We know that in the hallway, when they get a little touchy, Grace would have no problem calling them out.
I know, right? Grace will call me out if I'm wearing sweatpants, but she also hypes me up when I dress cute.
You know who gives the best compliments though? Isabel and Kate. Isabel never hesitates to tell you how cute you look in the hallway, and Kate always leaves heartwarming comments on your Instagram photos. Let's return the favor.
Good idea, Claire. Isabel, you have a great smile that makes everyone's day better.
And Kate, your outfits are always super chic.
You know who has the best outfits though? Peyton and Rachel.
Yeah, they're always so put together, unlike you and me, Paige. We have like one day a week that we dress up.
Yeah, but Roman Deal definitely has the coolest hair, and Lindsay by far has the longest eyelashes. I wish I had eyelashes as long as hers.
Paige, you can go get your extensions from Heidi when she opens up her own eyelash extension boutique. Heidi, go follow your dreams.
Speaking of the future, at the age of 30, I bet Max will still be getting ID'd at restaurants, bars, and maybe even R-rated movies.
I love movies, and I especially cannot wait until Turner comes out with his first big movie hit. Turner, I better be invited to the red carpet screening. You know who else is going to have a big hit one day?
Liam. His passion for music will push him to do great things in life. He'll probably be producing Connor's amazing music after she wins American Idol.
Sophia Gugino will for sure be the lead on Broadway, and by then, Charlie Andrus will still be watching anime.
And Katie Zack will be voicing that anime. She definitely has the best voice for that, and really any animation film. She talks with such passion in her voice.
I would love to see one of her films sometime. Paige, you know who I love? Matthew. He's always such a great friend and was an awesome football manager for 4 years.
I could name a ton of people who love Matthew, but Lucas definitely loves him the most. Lucas is a great friend to have because he truly does love you.
Josephine Sampson and Joey Sturker are also super loving to their dogs.
Yeah, I miss playing with Josephine's dog Chancho, and I know enough about Parker, Joey's dog, that I feel like I've met him.
Speaking of love, we all know that these two will be high school sweethearts. Quote me on it. The dedication they show to each other is unlike any other. I heard Corinne came to every single one of Sam's soccer and basketball games once they started dating. Maybe she missed like one, but that's still dedication.
Yeah, I'm just excited for the wedding though. But someone we all know that will be late to her own wedding is Lauren Feely. She is literally never on time for anything. Not only is she late for everything, but she's also the most indecisive person I know. She just decided where she's going to college. Go Red Hawks! Claire and I are super excited to visit.
Yeah, we love Lauren. Someone who definitely knows where she's going to college is Molly McGuire. After her soccer career, we know that someday she will star in her own TV show about herself because her life is so interesting.
Someone taking the world by storm in a much quieter way is Claire Graham. She has such a passion for helping people, and she will also be studying biochemistry at the University of Illinois. We are so excited to read her book all about it.
Since we've been talking so much about passion, we would like to recognize Kennedy Torggler as the most passionate driver in our grade. Clear the road, everybody, because every time Kennedy gets in the car, we know that she will get to her destination in the fastest way possible.
Claire, you have no room to talk. Didn't you rear end Kennedy?
Shh, Paige, it didn't make a scratch. Well, moving on, Robert for sure drives the coolest cars. I feel like he has a different truck or sports car every day.
But we all know Cole, Jacob, and Ryan have the best and biggest trucks. Watch out for Jacob, though. He will run you over if you aren't out of his way after school.
Someone who will never run you over is Johnathan Thiele. He is literally the nicest and best friend you could ask for. If you're sad about something, not only will Johnathan listen to you and give you advice, but he will carry the burden for you. What a great friend, am I right?
Yeah, you definitely are. But another great friend to have is Bella DiMauro. She makes me laugh until my stomach literally hurts. By the way, Bella, thanks for being the only contributor to our AP Lit class. You are going to do amazing things after we graduate.
You know who always makes me laugh is Will Schweppe and Vinny Englert. Just hearing their laughs make me laugh too. And someone who makes me smile when they say hi in the hallways is Tim Lewis. We have so many friendly faces in our class.
Josh Eppers definitely adds to that list. I will never forget the 3rd grade musical when Josh was Frosty the Snowman. I will also never forget our
Girl Power
group that we made in 8th grade, consisting of me, Claire, and Josh.
Yeah, I'm so happy Josh has been our friend for so long. But you know who has the most friends outside of our grade?
Naomi Simmons. She has always had so many friends, both in our grade and outside of it.
I know, right? I always see her leaving for senior lunch with a lot of people, including Alyssa Adler.
I know where Alyssa's pick to eat would be Chick-fil-A. She loves Chick-fil-A. I bet someday she will own one so she can eat it whenever she wants.
And Redden Williamson will for sure be her first customer because I know in middle school he used to live for chicken nuggets. Chicken nugget fool, he would say.
Hey, you know who has a meme for everything? Especially when something's going down in the senior group chat, which happens at least once a week.
That's a no-brainer. Kyrie.
Exactly what I was thinking. We can always count on a meme from Kyrie or Lucy and Eliza always speaking up.
Lucy will always tell you how she feels, and that's one of the things I love about her. I hope she goes into politics and gives them a run for their money because I'm willing to bet she knows more about every topic.
You know who else always speaks up? Jack.
Let me take this one, Paige. While Jack can get on many teachers' nerves, he will never hesitate to tell you what he's thinking. And I know he'll do great things in the future with a talent like that.
I didn't have many classes with Anthony, but you don't need to have a class with him to know that he's by far the most laid-back guy in our grade.
Nick is also super laid back. Every study hall, I would talk his ear off and spill all my personal drama. He never really reacted much, but I could tell he was listening to every word.
Yes, Nick is a great friend. We also have some great dancers in our class.
Olivia has been an amazing ballet dancer who has participated in tons of dance productions, and Abby is majoring at dance at Ohio University.
We also have some very artistic students in our class, such as Verona Schaffner and Asher Hodges. Verona is an amazing artist, and I'm super excited to see what Asher does in the DAP program at University of Cincinnati. Livie Zack will for sure be receiving an award for her digital art and design.
We have many students who are going to make a big impact through design and technology. Emma will be designing t-shirts for all of us. Kobe will be printing the newest technology with his 3D printer. Jordan will be saving our iPhones. And Morgan will be teaching different languages to students all around the world.
We all know Andrew Carroll could live anywhere in the world, whether it was inside or outside. Just like Lee and Luke, who always brag about the big fish they catch. I swear I have seen too many pictures of Luke with a fish in his hand and a mullet haircut.
And we can't forget about the nicknames the whole grade knows about. Elizabeth, going by Salty Liz through soccer and lacrosse season, was memorable. Shout out to Coach Scott for starting that nickname. We can't forget about the entire track and cross country team always calling Ben Benja.
And every NHS meeting, Nathan getting called Big Bates right before he was about to speak.
We have all been going to school together for a long time, so it's really cool to see what people are going to accomplish once they leave. Curtis and Aiden will be protecting our freedoms when they join the military.
Yeah, and I bet Katie McNally will be super successful. I remember in 6th grade, we all had her sign a pair of her shoes and give them to us. I still have them. She will definitely become a professional tennis player once she graduates. Oh wait, she already is one.
You know who always seems to be practicing? Brennan Huon. I swear he spends more time on that field with a soccer and lacrosse stick than time at home.
Seems like a good plan to Timmy.
Another successful student in the business world will be Zack Altman. Paige, remember when he started selling shoes? I thought it was going to work out for him, but his nonstop drive to be successful will make him an amazing entrepreneur.
And Andrew Pruitt will be an FBI agent, since he shows his great investigator skills in forensics class.
I remember junior year, Andrew and I were partners in Miss Barton's forensics class. We had so much fun every day. I can't wait to see what he accomplishes in the future.
Looking to the future, we don't have to worry about James Ruth. He always lands on his feet. Speaking of being solid, Josh Stevens reminds me of a famous statue. Did you ever notice how much he looks like the Thinker statue?
Yeah, I did. You know what? I was a little confused when Trevor transferred to Madeira from our biggest rival, Indian Hill. But we are so happy that he did. Dang, I have been struggling to have the motivation to do my schoolwork during this quarantine.
Yeah, me too. But I bet you haven't been struggling as much as Joey Jalek. He's had senioritis since September. I'm sure it has been hard though, especially being stuck at your house for over a month now.
We all know that this is a weird and sad way for our senior year to end, virtually or in person. We are grateful that we get to celebrate our amazing class in some way. I know I'm ready to leave home and start the next chapter of my life, and I'm sure you're all too.
We want to thank all of our staff members, classmates, parents, and the Madeira community for helping us become the people that we are today. I know we will remember the class of 2020 as a special one. Thank you.
It is our pleasure to introduce our classmate and one of my good friends, Turner Burton.
Thank you, Paige. Thank you, Claire. Dig, if you will, the picture. I was 14 years old. I didn't know much, but I did know that I liked acting, making videos, and making music. I knew I had felt different from other people my whole life. I showed up to high school on the first day, technically the class president, but I'd never been to high school before and didn't know what I was getting into, let alone how to be a figurehead for the class. I was overwhelmed by a bunch of new stuff, so instead of auditioning for the play in the fall like I planned to, I ran the lights. In the spring, for the musical, I told them I'd accept one role and one role only, then went back on that after, surprise, surprise, I didn't get that role. I came crawling back to join the ensemble.
I didn't get re-elected for class president, and rightfully so, as I wasn't very good at the job. The next year, I started taking more AP classes, and the workload increased. I wasn't having any luck with girls. All my friends were in the marching band, and I wasn't, so I hardly saw them anymore. The year after that is a complete blur. ACT prep, testing, spending a spring break looking at colleges, a job I didn't like at all that summer. And senior year? Don't even get me started on the college application process and all the rewards and all the events the senior class was promised that we missed out on. It's hard to enjoy your senior year when you only lived 3/4 of it, honestly. So what do the facts seem to point to? Sounds like I had a pretty garbage high school career when you line it all up in a row like that. The odds, it seems, were stacked against me from the beginning and never got any better, culminating in a senior year that seemed to abruptly end. But I didn't tell you the whole story. The reason I put When Doves Cry by Prince in your head at the beginning of this speech was because freshman year was the time in my life where I discovered more about myself than any other. I discovered I loved the 80s, and as silly as it sounds, that was the beginning of some of the truest self-expression I've ever known. I didn't tell you that my sophomore year meant a trip to Chicago with the choir and band that I will never forget. Bookended by a featured role in the fall play and my first ever lead role in the spring musical, which, by the way, if I have my numbers correct, still holds the record for the highest ticket sales in school theater history. I guess I also neglected to mention that I did actually have a girlfriend for part of my junior year and was asked to be the executive producer of What's Up Madeira when those in charge hadn't even seen a resume. I finally joined band and had the time of my life, then took a life-changing cruise. In theater, I had 2 roles in one show in the fall and 2 roles in one show again in the spring. Perhaps most importantly, I met Gur that year, who taught me so much both inside and outside of the classroom. Doesn't sound so bad now, does it? As for senior year, well, like I said, don't get me started. Senior lunches, my favorite cast to work with on What's Up Madeira, classes I was having fun in, writing music with Mrs. Adams for the concert band to play. And that's without even mentioning the people I'd gone to school with forever and only just started to get to know. The friends I began to make, the greater understanding I had of my class, and this exciting feeling that, finally, they were beginning to understand me too. My original point in writing this speech was to thank Madeira. Walking into this school knowing that you're more of a creative than an academic or an athlete can, in all honesty, be daunting. I owe a lot of my growth and a lot of my current self-confidence to words and acts of encouragement from some of the best faculty I could have asked to have been taught by. Mr. Kitchen, for example, who was kind enough to proofread an entire manuscript for a science fiction novella I wrote freshman year, despite the fact that it was not great literature. Mrs. Moliterno and the bonus points I received for wearing Converse the day we took our test on the 80s. Mr. Belarski and Mr. Stalker, who understand video games the best out of any teachers I've ever had because they play them themselves. Gur, who, as cliche as it sounds, taught me to always be myself because people will no doubt be drawn to that. The list goes on for miles, but in light of recent events, I think it would benefit the audience a little bit more if I hit on something else entirely. Perspective. Think for a moment about the beginning of the speech. How I tricked you into believing I had a bum 4 years, then flipped it around on you and told you how awesome it all actually was. That's what I mean by perspective. It's what you focus on. If we view high school as a season in our lives, like we view a season of our favorite show, there's no way we're going to remember the whole thing. Instead, we're going to run back the days in our heads like a highlight reel or a best of. It's important to me, especially in light of the fact that it would be really easy right now to focus on what's lost, that we instead fill the highlight reel with what we were lucky enough to have. There's a lot more of what we got than what we didn't get. Our experiences weren't for nothing. We didn't come up short, and it's not going to prevent our lives from moving forward. Your high school career has not been devoid of meaning. So I urge you, reframe your thinking. It's easier said than done, and it's something that I also struggle with myself, but I wouldn't be here giving you a speech on it if I didn't believe in its importance. And remember to take a deep breath every once in a while, okay? It's going to be all right.
Everybody loves the things you do, from the way you talk to the way you move. Everybody here is watching you, 'cause you feel like home. You're like a dream come true. You look like a movie. You sound like a song. like a movie. It was just like a song. My God, this reminds me of when we were young. Let me photograph you in this light in case it is the last time that we might be exactly like we were before we realized we were sad of getting old. It made us restless. Oh, I'm so mad I'm getting old. It makes me reckless. It was just like a movie. It was just like a song when we were young.
I would like to thank everyone for coming to this year's Baccalaureate to celebrate the class of 2020. This year came to an unexpected end, but that didn't stop the class from celebrating one another. The class of 2020 is a great class that's full of resilience and perseverance, something that I believe will continue to exhibit in the future. Because of that, I would like you to continue to celebrate the class of 2020. Again, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your evening.